What's going on? This is Ryan with Automatic Comics, and up next I've got an awesome unboxing here. It's 3 boxes, but it's just one book in each box. One of them is from a run that I really think you should be keeping your eye on now, and I'm excited to get into these. Let's check out these books. Alright, so before we get started, please remember to hit that like button and hit the subscribe button if you'd like to see more content like this. Got some awesome books in this video. One that's from a run that I really think you should be paying attention to now. I'm actually planning on probably doing a separate video completely on that and some of the books you should really be looking for with that one. But I'll talk about it some here. I've got a DC book, I've got 2 Marvel books, one's Bronze Age, one's Silver, and one book is from the Golden Age. Also, for the people that have been asking and are interested, when I open the Golden Age book that's in here in this unboxing, I'm going to talk a little bit about pricing. I've had a number of people that have asked recently, kind of like to get an idea what it costs for some of these books, and so I thought it'd be interesting to go over that with this book, as well as some of the other keeper books that are related that I have in my collection. Some exciting books here, so let's start with this one. This should be the DC Bronze Age book, if I labeled the box correctly, because when I cut off the labels, sometimes I have to try to remember who sent me the book. But yeah, that's definitely what this is. It is packed great. There's lots of bubble wrap and styrofoam in there, and it's packed well so that it's not making a big mess when I open it up. So I have never actually owned a copy of this book before, which is, like, it's pretty surprising for me considering I'm a pretty big Batman fan. This is a DC book, this is a Batman book. This is this is probably one of the hottest DC Batman books over the last couple years, which does make me a little bit nervous because I've talked about how with a lot of the spikes in comics, one of the places that you can go to where it's maybe a little bit safer are DC keys, because a lot of those didn't participate in the comic boom, and so they've just been kind of like gradually trending up, whereas there were some DC books that did participate. This is one of them that did start trending up pretty strong when we got into kind of like early 2020, but it's continued that. It hasn't had really any break, and it has continued to be strong. I don't know if that means it's eventually gonna turn down and correct or not, but we'll see. So this is Batman number 227, and if you're not familiar with this book, this is a Neil Adams homage cover to Detective Comics number 31. And if you're not familiar with Detective Comics 31, I'll put a picture of that one up over here. That is one of the most famous Batman covers of all time. It's also the 5th appearance of Batman, so it's a big deal in that on its own. But that cover from the Golden Age is, you can see, if I still have the picture up there, you can see how that was basically used for this, how you get this very similar look and feel to this cover, but this one was done by Neil Adams in 1970. But yeah, 7.5, a really beautiful copy of this book. You can see where the damage is mostly at. See the damage, it's mostly like here. It looks like it maybe has been pressed, but I always like to check this out. Like, you can tell this book definitely wasn't cleaned. I mean, you can see the dirt in the white here. It's really easy to see. So it's very easy to say this book was not cleaned. It kind of feels like maybe it was pressed. Let's see. I mean, it's one of those things where I always like to check this because this book actually jumps in price really, really quickly as you start getting up into the 8s and the 9s. I mean, it's not cheap even in a 7.5. It's like a $1,000 book in a 7.5 almost. But it gets even more and more expensive as you move up, and especially a big part of it is that black cover. It's not hiding anything. But you can see, like, this book, it's pretty clean. You've got a little roughness on the bottom there. There's a couple little spine ticks. And the biggest thing that really jumps out is this wear up in this corner here. There's just stuff like that. Like, that doesn't look pressed. Yeah, I mean, definitely not. Like, that is not color breaking. And that's, I mean, so this hasn't been pressed. Is it almost even some writing indentation? No, maybe not. But could it get to an 8? I don't know. Maybe. That's something where the jump from a 7.5 to an 8, that might be worth it. It might be worth the attempted submission. So it's something I'm definitely going to think about with this one. There's I think the last 8.0 sale was around 1,400, and if the 7.5 I'd say is somewhere around 950-ish, something like that. If you can get an 8.0 and you just have to put in like $100 for grading and pressing, or like $80 for grading and pressing, something like that, that's a big jump in value, and so that could be worth it. Now, if you don't get the 8.0 and you stay at a 7.5, then you just sunk like $80 in and you don't really get anything out of it. Or if you, even worse, something happens, it gets damaged or whatever, and you end up with a 7, now you're you're losing even more money. But that's the risk you take if you're going to try to resubmit something to try to get a better grade. But definitely a book that I really like. I've wanted that one for a while. That is Batman 251 is like my favorite Neil Adams Batman cover, but that one is close. That is a great cover. So definitely a cool book to look for if you're a Batman fan. And it's pretty pricey, even down in the lower grades. It's gotten a lot more attention over the last couple of years. But I think it's a book that maybe if you can find it raw, maybe you can find a deal on it. But even raw, I see it going pricey. So, but just one to watch for. It's possible it'll start correcting or something like that, because it had gone up so much. It's been on a consistent uptrend. Maybe I'll throw a picture of like one of the charts up here. But that's what we saw with a lot of the other books as well, where you had these just strong, consistent uptrends for the last 2 years, and they eventually started leveling off and many turning down. So, all right. So the next book here is the one that is from the run that I think you should really be watching for, because I think there are some deals out there on these books, and you don't get opportunities to get deals on these books very often. And you will know what I'm talking about when I open this one up. I picked this book up on eBay. I felt like I was just lucky that I was watching the right auction. Right now, even though I am seeing some return to strength, especially in things like Silver Age. This is a Silver Age book. eBay auctions, you can find some deals there. That is a good place to watch. If you see a book that you've been looking for a while get put up on auction, at least just watch it. You know, maybe it does go strong, maybe it does go high, but give yourself the opportunity to try to pick that book up, because this one I ended up picking up for like 2020 prices. Like this, and I wouldn't be selling it for that. And so, yeah, this is a stunner. All right, I'm gonna take this one out of the bag so you can see it. Honestly, it's one of those things where when I won it, I was like, are they gonna not ship this out? Because I felt like I got such a good price on it. But yeah, no, it's a stunner of a book. So this is Amazing Spider-Man, number 41, first appearance of Rhino in a 9.0. 9.0, and it's off-white to white pages. 9.0 is a tough grade for this book. For any Spider-Man key in the 9s is pretty nuts, but this book, a 9.0 puts it in like the top like 9% approximately of copies. I mean, yeah, it's a beautiful book. I've got, I can't remember, I think I have 2 other copies of this one. There's like a 4.5 and a 5, or a 5.5 and a 4.5, something like that. But yeah, I've never had a copy of this book up in this type of grade. There's the back. So this one, I'd mentioned, some people had asked about like prices and things, and I don't always talk about prices because usually I'm if you're aware, you watch my channel, I also sell books, and so if I'm talking about prices, I don't always like to give the prices that I pay when I'm then selling the books. But this is eBay. You can go look up what I paid for it, so I don't really mind talking about it too much. I won it for around $2,100 after tax and everything. I paid $2,300. If I was going to sell this book, I would be listing it for around $4,000. The last sale in July for a 9.0, now that was a white pages copy, was $5,685. And so even taking into account the premium for a white pages copy, an 8.0 sold for whatever, $2,520 in this month in August. So this was $400, give or take, less than that 8.0. Now that 8.0 was also white pages, but if you look at what the premium was for that, that was about 50% over a normal 8.0. And so if you'd say that for this one, that's around $3,800, 35 to 3,800 for this one. So I just, that's why auctions right now, you can sometimes catch some really killer deals, and I felt like that was the case with this one. So super happy with this. I was, you always want to kind of like check these older cases just to see if there are like any cracks or anything like that. Surprisingly, this case is super clean. This is one of these older ones I've talked about. I remember the first time I got a book that had this type of case. This was a number of years ago when I was pretty new to this. So you can see like these older cases, they open a little bit on the sides, and that's by design. It's supposed to be to help get like air in there so you don't have the book sitting in all the off-gassing, and all that kind of stuff. But I remember the first time I had one like that, I was like, oh no, did somebody, like pull the book out and it was this resealed? That's not what it is. When you have a case that's like this design, this older one, they open like that on the side. There's just a little bit. But yeah, 9.0, killer copy of this book. First appearance of Rhino. And this is what I wanted to talk about. I am seeing some deals out there with Amazing Spider-Man keys, and like I said, I'll probably end up making a video about it at some point. And Amazing Spider-Man in general is just the most popular character out there. I mean, there's really not much question about it. You could maybe argue for Batman a little bit, but Spider-Man really is the most popular character out there, and he's one of those characters where his villains are actually also very, very popular. A lot of times you get villains that don't retain value, but villains for characters like Batman and villains for Spider-Man really do retain their value, and I'm seeing some deals out there with Spider-Man Silver Age keys, and I think it was just things got really hyped up around the movie, and then you get kind of like over relaxations, over corrections in price. And I think that's kind of what we're seeing a little bit with Spider-Man right now. So definitely a character to keep your eye on, and those Silver Age keys that are related to it, I think they're giving some pretty good opportunities out there right now, and that is an example of one, because I felt like that was just a total steal for a 9.0 of the first Rhino. Oh yeah, and the other thing I just thought was pretty cool. If you watched my CGC unboxing I did a couple months ago, I sent in a ASM 42. I have a 9.0 of that as well. So this is the first appearance of Rhino, it's the second appearance of Rhino, both in a 9.0. This is all, but the main thing this is known for is this is the first time you see Mary Jane's face in comics. It's on the last panel of the last page. This is also a pretty cool book because it's this specific one, because if you look at the back here, you see there's one staple and there is no other staple. So it's a manufacturing error, so it doesn't hurt the grade of the book, but it's a single staple book, which I think is pretty cool when you have that, especially 'cause it's a super high grade copy of this in a 9.0. So yeah, so that's the other high grade Amazing Spider-Man book that I have, and I just think it's pretty cool. They're both 9.0s, match up well. All right, so now to this one. And so like I said, I had a Bronze Age book, a Silver Age book, and a Golden Age book. This is a Golden Age book. This one I picked up from New Force Comics. If you are not familiar with them, man, you got to follow them on Instagram. They have some of the craziest books. Some of the, like, when you see them post like that they're at a show, it's just like a wall where it's like 10 copies of Amazing Spider-Man 14, 5 copies of AF-15, like 5 copies of Tales of Suspense 39. It's just keys after keys. It's crazy to see the books that they have. And this is one where he made a post, and it was like, we sold 2 of these, and I've got this one left, and I messaged him, and I was like, oh, here's his card if you are interested, and that's their information. I've bought a few books from them before. I bought a number of Signature Series books from them. I bought my X-Men 4, my 5.0 that I recently sold that book. I bought from them. So I'm always watching what he's posting because he's got some really cool stuff. But this one he posted, and it was 3 books, and I wish I would have known about the first 2 before they sold, but he's like, this one's still available. And I messaged him, and I was like, what's the price for that one? And he gave me the price, and I instantly accepted. I knew what I wanted to pay, and if it was around that price, I was going to accept it. With the Golden Age, you don't screw around. You don't wait and think like, oh, maybe I'll spend. It's like if it's around the price you want, and it's a rare book like this, you go for it. And I talked about that in my Golden Age video. I've got like price ranges for things. Then when it's Golden Age and it's rare stuff, especially when it's certain types of keys, you can't sit around and wait because somebody else is going to buy it. Because he told me apparently 2 other people had reached out to him before me, and he had given them the price and they were thinking about it. But I was the first one to respond that I would take it, and they both responded after me that they would also take it, but I had already gotten it. So I'm super happy about picking this one up. People often ask what are the keeper books that end up in my keepers list. This is one of them. And so this book is Marvel Mystery Comics number 29. This is an awesome Alex Schomburg, Human Torch, saving the woman that's going to be chopped up in the lumber mill saw. You've got these guys who are like hooded villains, which normally you would, in this time period, you would usually have like swastikas on the back, but this one doesn't have the swastikas on there. But they often have these like little gremlin guys, but it's a Schomburg cover. That's the type of stuff you really want to look for the Marvel Mystery Comics run. You want Alex Schomburg. You want his Human Torch covers. If you can get the woman in distress that he's saving on there, so it's like the bondage type covers, that kind of stuff. That it just adds to the demand for these. And these books, they are tough to come by. They are rare. They are in demand, and so I bought it for $2,500. So people have asked, like, can I talk about some of the prices for some of these rare Golden Age books so they can get an idea what some of this stuff actually costs if they're interested in it. And so this one, the price is $2,500. I'd value this one personally around $3,000, but if somebody offered me $3,000, I wouldn't take it. So it's one of those things. It's like the value is when you have books like this, it's what the person is willing to let it go for. And I don't know what my number would be, but it's more than that. And so this one, man, I'd have to think about it. I can't tell what the staple situation is on this one. There's definitely, I can't tell if it's there's definitely a single staple down here. But then I don't know if might be a detached staple. I'd have to check the notes, if there even are notes, because it's a little older one. I can't tell if that's like a detached staple up here, but it's a nice looking copy for a 3.0. It's got a pretty big spine roll, you can see here. That's the spine roll. And this is like a pre-cleaning book. This book I would say wasn't cleaned, wasn't pressed. You have the risk of, are you going to detach a cover when you press something like this? But I feel like this one would have maybe a shot at getting above a 3.0. I mean, it's missing a little piece out of the corner down here. But in general, it is a solid looking copy of this book. It's got this really cool date stamp here too. So what's that? Looks like January 28th. So this book came out in March of 1942, so it's probably January 28th of 1941. I think it says AM. No, it says PM. So it doesn't have the year, but January 28th, which I think is pretty awesome. And so this one, just some details about it, and some things that are tough when you're talking about pricing books like this. This book has not sold publicly above a 1.8 for 4 years. The last sale above a 1.8 was in 2018. There are only 36 universal copies, and so when you have stuff like that, you're like, how do you price books like that? The 1.8 I think sold for like $1,500, give or take, but there was a 0.5 that sold for like $1,000 this year, and so then you're just like, I generally with books like this, I'll say they're usually at least $1,000 per point. That's at least $1,000 per point, and but would I sell? And would I sell them for that? No, I wouldn't. So you can treat that however you want, but it's like what's somebody willing to let go for that. Now, like I've said, people often ask what are some other books that are on my keepers list, and this is a run that I'm not trying to put together this run, but there are issues from this run that if I get them, they end up on my keepers list, and it's usually things like Alex Schomburg, Good Girl Art, and World War II type covers. And so I've got a couple other books that I was just going to show that I've got. One of them, this is from one of my recent unboxings that I sent in. I sent this book in raw. I picked this one up from Flip Mode Comics on Instagram. I sent this one in raw, had it pressed and cleaned by the comic book presser, or the presser that I've been using, and got a 4.5 back. And this is one of my, I love this cover. This cover is just got about everything you want for a World War II era Marvel Mystery Comics cover. You've got Human Torch on there. You've got him busting up Nazis. You've got this like huge, the swastika there, this crazy like hooded guy with the skull scepter with another swastika on the top. You've got the woman that's in distress that's going to be crushed by this crazy machine. You've got Toro there, who's the smaller Human Torch that's often on the covers with him. And then he's just beating up Nazis. Just like, that's what, those are the top World War II covers, the ones where you've got Human Torch just wrecking Nazis. There's the back with the Baby Ruth bar and everything. But that's one of those. And like with that one, there are 41 total copies on the census, and I value that one around $4,000. Like I said, about $1,000 per grade point. When you get up to higher grades, it accelerates. You get more value per point, but that's about where I value that one. But again, I wouldn't sell it for that. So, it is what it is. If somebody offered me like, I don't know, $8,000, I'd sell it, but I have no interest in selling it for lower amounts. Then another one I've got here is Marvel Mystery Comics number 17. This is also one that I sent in that recent submission. This is a 2.0 C5 restoration. The reason for the C5 really is this along the spine, where somebody basically rebuilt that spine there, where there had been a lot of paper loss. And I joked about this one when I got it, how like they tried to like draw the scrolling on there. I just thought that was so hilarious. But the back cover is awesome. This like big Alex Schomburg Human Torch image. But again, this is an Alex Schomburg cover. This is one where you've got him and Submariner on the cover, which is awesome. You've got the Nazi battleship that they're both wrecking, and just that's the type of content you want. It's issue 17, so 1941, really early, and awesome cover. And so this one. There are 64 total copies on the census, 46 universal, 16 restored, and then for pricing, a 1.8 C3 recently sold for $2,070. So C3 means a little less restoration, but still amateur, and that was in September of 2021. And then a 5.0 C1 sold for $3,948 in June of this year. And so I'd value this one around $2,400, give or take, something like that. But that's kind of like the pricing for this. I bought this one raw from Heritage. I think I paid like $600 or something. It felt like a steal to me to be able to pick up a complete copy, even though this stuff is here, but it's complete copy of Marvel Mystery Comics for this low of a number for that type of price. So that's where I got that one. And then the last one, this is actually one of the main keys in my keeper collection, and this is Marvel Mystery Comics number 7, and it's in a 6.0, and this is the second time that Alex Schomburg ever draws the Human Torch, and in my opinion, the first time he draws him in a way that actually looks like the Human Torch that we know. He draws him in an earlier issue, I can't remember, is it 5? I'd have to check. I'll throw a picture of it up here, 5 or 6, something like that. But to me, it doesn't really look like the version of the Human Torch that we see forever after that. Like, you look at this Human Torch, and then this Human Torch from 17, they look the same. And then you look at this Human Torch from 52, they look the same. This is the version that we see consistently for years with Alex Schomburg creating this character. It's also him melting through the wall. I love this. It's kind of like an homage to Marvel Mystery Comics number 1, where the Human Torch is melting through the wall, which I love that cover. It's got also the Good Girl Art, woman in distress, bondage, that he's saving. So just the only thing this one is missing is it's not like he's battling Nazis or anything on the cover of this one. These are just bad guys that are in like diving gear. So, but this book has become a very large book because of a sale that happened about, I don't know, maybe a year ago. There are 34 universal copies. There was a 6.5 that sold for, it was like 12,000 or 12.5. And then recently, I think there was a 4.5 that sold for like around 6, like 5,800. And so this one I value somewhere between 10.5 and 11,000. And so yeah, this is a big book. But one of the kind of like the prides and joy of my collection, because it's super early Marvel Mystery, it's super early Alex Schomburg on Human Torch, and it's just an incredible presenting copy. The main reason that this one is a 6.0 is this small split that's up in the top here. There's a small split up in the top. Otherwise, I mean, yeah, look at this thing. Just an incredible copy of this book. One that it's like, I don't know, I'd be tempted to try to put it into a new slab just so it's something that's a little clearer, but I think it looks nice enough in here. It's always nerve-wracking thinking about having somebody like crack something out of the slab, and I wouldn't be trying to press it and regrade it. I would just be trying to get it in a newer looking slab. But yeah, those are my current graded copies of Marvel Mystery Comics. I have 2 other issues that are raw that are going to get graded. One of them is also likely going to be a keeper for me. The other one probably not, just based on the cover content again. But yeah, that's all the unboxings. I had wanted to talk about that a little bit because I'd had a number of people recently in comments asking about some of the pricing for some of these Golden Age books, and just kind of like to get an idea what the cost is to get into that. And so, like I said, for something like Marvel Mystery Comics, for the more key type issues, about $1,000 a point. So really, your baseline, if you're even trying to get like a 1.0 or a 0.5, is around $1,000. That's really what it is now. So, but yeah, hope you enjoyed this video. Saw some cool books. If you did, please hit that like button, hit the subscribe button if you'd like to see more content like this. I've got more videos over here if you'd like to watch some of my other videos, and the subscription button right here. If you'd like to subscribe to the channel, I'd really appreciate it, and I will see you in the next video.